Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are going to go ahead and get started. Today we're going to talk about how we can really take your fundraising to the next level and help you do that. My name is Molly Fast. I'm actually going to turn this over to Jackie to help kick us off today. So Jackie, I will go ahead and do that.
Thanks, Molly. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Fearless Fundraising webinar. This is our second webinar in a two-part series, and today we're going to talk about expanding your winning formula. As Molly said, I'm Jackie Ford. I'm the Development Director for National Events and the Free to Breathe event series. It looks like we have a great audience for today's webinar, and we're so excited to see many, many wonderful friends on the line with us today. That's always awesome to see really familiar names, and wonderful to see some new folks joining us as well. Thank you all so much for sharing your time with us and being interested and excited to so passionately continue and expand your remarkable fundraising efforts for Free to Breathe and to become an even more fearless and active voice for the lung cancer movement. Fundraising is such an important element of our Free to Breathe events, and it's really through the money raised at events that each of you are helping to transform lives and restore hope and build the promise of life-saving treatments for each person and family affected by lung cancer. As a fundraiser, thank you. Thank you for committing to help change the future of lung cancer and being a driving force. And being the driving force which has actually allowed our organization to put forth our new vision for the next decade. Together, we're going to double lung cancer survival in the next 10 years. This is a vision we can and will accomplish together. Truly, the future for lung cancer is so much brighter and more hopeful now than it's ever been. And it's through the extraordinary fundraising efforts of folks just like yourselves that we will achieve this vision and drive progress so that one day we are all free to breathe. Thank you to each of you for your continued and new engagement with us and for your passion and dedication to doubling lung cancer survival by 2022. That's really what we're here to do, and again, we can definitely achieve this together. So with that, I would like to introduce Molly Fast, who you know her by name now, but Molly is the Associate Director with our partner Event 360. And Molly has 10 incredible years of success in event and peer-to-peer fundraising and is excited to share her knowledge and insight with you today. She's looking very forward to helping you build upon and expand your fundraising success to garner continued support from your donors year after year. As you look ahead to creating some great momentum with your Free to Breathe fundraising efforts this year, thank you. And we're sending you incredible good energy as you look ahead. So Molly, with that, I'd love to turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so you've been looking for about a minute or so here at the agenda screen. So we're definitely, if you're on this call, you've kind of self-selected and told us that you have experience with fundraising and you're really looking to take things to the next level. So we're going to touch on some fundraising basics kind of with that in mind. And then for those of you who feel like I already kind of have a handle on this, we're going to talk a little bit about, what does that mean to have kind of been there and done that and take that to the next level here. And then more specifically, a fundraising ask in 6 steps with this idea in mind, again, that we're building upon what you may have already started or what you've already done in the past. And then give a little bit of context for team participation, what you can do in that area, and if you're a team captain, how we can help you grow what you do with your team, and then specific information on how to get fundraising support from us, and then some immediate next steps, because if I've done my job right, then at the end of this webinar, you're going to feel fired up and ready to go, and we want to be able to give you some really quick direction on that. Just a few reminders. Today's session is being recorded, so it will be available on our website at a later point, I think probably within the next couple of days or so. So if you want to come back and listen to it again, or if you weren't able to join us today and you're listening to it at a later date, then welcome and thank you for doing that. Everybody is muted for today's session, but we do have the ability to take your questions through the chat panel, which should be on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, and we will answer those questions at the end of today's webinar. I did also want to say, for those of you who joined us on last week's webinar, thank you. First of all, it was a real pleasure to have the opportunity to connect with everybody through that experience last week. But some of the content is definitely touched on that we spoke about last week, but really the meat of what we're going over today will hopefully be new content for you to, as I said, take everything to the next level and build upon kind of the base knowledge that you may have learned last week. So thank you. I'm going to go ahead and just continue on that theme of gratitude and say thank you for being here. Thank you for your support of our organization. Thank you for your support of the lung cancer movement. We could not do this work without you. So a huge thank you for taking the time aside to be with us today and for your commitment to learn more about fundraising and to continue fundraising that you're doing for us. So a big thank you. I know for some people, fundraising may make you feel like this. You may feel ready to go and ready to jump in. And some of you may have questions. That may be why you're on the phone today, to connect with us and see what we have to teach you. And you may just be skeptical about going back and doing fundraising again and reaching out to the same people. Our goal is that we can get you maybe to look a little bit like this about fundraising towards the end, or at the very least that it's something that you're excited about and ready to get started with. So the bottom line, though, is that the world needs you. And I think if you're here and you've already done fundraising, I hope that you're able to see just the impact that you do have with the work that you do with fundraising. I think it's an incredible opportunity that we all have to leave this world a better place than we kind of walked into it with. And I think fundraising provides us with such an amazing platform to do that. So as I said, if you're here kind of on this session, maybe you had a conflict last week, but I think everybody understands that registering is just the very first step in what we have the opportunity to do in terms of creating that better world that I just spoke about. And fundraising is really the next step. For those of you who have fundraised before, who have participated before, you probably really understand that this is what really drives what we're doing within the organization. The truth is that fundraising dollars raised by people just like you, as Jackie said, this is what's going to help us double the lung cancer survival in the next 10 years. We can't do it without you. It's just the very heart of the matter is we need all of the help that we can get, and the work that we all do in fundraising is so important in helping us realize this vision. So again, a huge thank you for your time, for your commitment, for your willingness to learn, and for maybe stepping a little bit outside of your comfort zone to learn a little bit more about fundraising to help be even more successful than what you've done in the past. So as I said, I'm going to touch on basics, but I want to, again, it's coming from the standpoint of maybe you've already done fundraising before, maybe you participated last year, maybe you've participated in a previous year, maybe you've done some other type of fundraising events before. And so, you know, last week we talked a little bit about the definition of fundraising and kind of what may come up for you when you think of fundraising. And I think, again, for where we're at this week, we're moving a little bit beyond that. And what I want to talk about to this group in particular is just oftentimes what I find in dealing with event participants is that we put up barriers in front of ourselves about what we can and can't do with fundraising, especially when we're going back to the same people or fundraising for the same cause or doing the same event. So I'm asking everyone to kind of give themselves permission to remove those barriers that we put up in front of ourselves. And I want to just start out by saying you're awesome. You're great for being here. You're great for taking on this challenge of participating again or for fundraising again. And I believe that you can do it. And I think I really like this print. It says, believe you can and you will. And I think we all bring that aspect of that to anything that we do, but especially with fundraising, I think oftentimes it is just putting that thought out there in the universe that we have the opportunity to create this better world and to raise this money and to really help further the lung cancer movement. And so I know that you can do it, and I hope that this call reminds all of you that you have the ability to do that as well. One of the things that I think is important to keep in mind also as you go about doing this is that many people set money aside for charitable contributions. I know for myself, I literally have an amount of money that I set aside each month in my budget to be able to donate to people. And especially as an event fundraiser, I get a lot of people who come and ask me for money. And so I've built that into my budget, and I know many other people do that as well. And last week I was talking with my colleague Eileen, who's on this call, and she reminded me that sometimes people are actually insulted if you don't reach out and ask them. If we make that assumption that they don't want to support us, what I find is that after time, especially as you kind of build upon your fundraising experience and continue to participate in a Free to Breathe event or in another event, people are waiting for you to ask them to make a contribution. So I think you can kind of lift that off your shoulders as well, of just make sure that you're asking everybody, because chances are they might be waiting for you. I think the truth of the matter is that the work that we get to do and the opportunity that we have in fundraising, it is a gift. Because at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're providing people who know and love you with an opportunity to support something that's important to you. And I think many of us come to these events and do this work because we have been very personally impacted by the cause. And oftentimes, I know for myself, having been personally impacted by cancer, I know what it's like to have friends who want to do something and don't feel like they can do anything. And it's one of the greatest gifts that we have with events, is that we are providing people who love us with an opportunity to show just how much they do care, and to be able to kind of express that by supporting our fundraising that we're doing. The other thing is that you're giving someone the opportunity to be a part of groundbreaking treatments and research that can save someone's life. And I think that it's really powerful to be able to tell someone that the money they're doing really makes a difference and matters. And I think another thing is you get to share your story and increase awareness for lung cancer, which I think many of us on this phone likely know that it is severely underfunded and it needs a lot of exposure. And so one of the things that we talk about at Event 360 is that fundraising is our best awareness tool. And I think it's also your best awareness tool for why this matters to you personally. So I think as you're going about thinking how you're going to continue with fundraising and what you're going to do, I hope you'll keep these three thoughts in mind, because it's important, the difference that you get to help make just by being a fundraiser. We talk a lot also at Event 360 just about what the key to fundraising is, and I'm going to be coming back to this a lot. It'll be a common theme that I talk about throughout the presentation, but it's quite simple. You just need to ask. You need to ask someone to give you a donation. When we talk with event participants and different organizations, you know, what we learn is that the primary reason that people don't give is pretty simple. It's because they aren't asked. And so, again, going back to this theme of don't make these assumptions for people and making sure that you're talking about and asking people, that's how you're really going to continue with your fundraising efforts. It's also one of those very basic tenets within fundraising. You get money when you ask for it, and you don't get it when you don't ask for it. And so whether you've been doing this for 1 year, for 5 years, for 10 years, it all comes down to asking and being willing to bring the conversation to that point. The other thing is, you know, what is your story? Why is it that you're involved in this event? What is it about this event in particular that has called to you? And as we have, you know, spent some time working together, one of the things that that I've kind of learned and that I've kind of heard come up again throughout my time as an event fundraiser is that there's a little bit of a hesitation on the part of an event participant as more distance is created between the time that maybe you're doing this because someone passed away, and so maybe there's a lot of time that's gone by since that happened. And I would just say your story is just as important today as it was 5 years ago, as it was 10 years ago, because there's a real reason and a real motivation that has inspired you to do this fundraising and to do this event and to do that work. And for the people who love you and support you, it doesn't matter what that story is, they're going to want to support you because they love you and because your reason matters. I liked this image because it just reminded me that all of this stuff is really close to the heart, our reason for why we do this, and it's so important to make sure that you're sharing that personal story and you're really comfortable talking about it, because as I said, whether it happened, whether your reason for doing this is recent or not, it's something that really matters to you, that people are really going to feel connected to. When I talk with participants who have fundraised before, I think there are a lot of assumptions that we make, and I've touched on them a little bit, but I want to kind of point out a few that definitely come up over and over again as I work with event fundraising participants, and some of the assumptions that we make about our donors. there's three things typically. I think we question, who will support me again? Will they still care? And are people sick of hearing from me? And my answers are, who will support me again? Anyone who you ask. Will they still care? Absolutely, if you make it compelling and you remind them why you're doing it. And are people sick of hearing from you? I wouldn't make that assumption. I can promise you that in the 10 years that I've been working with Event 360, I've never heard someone say, please don't ask me to support you. I'm sick of hearing about this story. Those kinds of things just don't happen, again, because we're surrounded by people who love us and who want to support us, and they really want to do what they can to help do the things that matter to us. A big thing is also, you never know who will choose to support you. And in our case of people who have maybe been doing this time and time again, you never know who's going to choose to support you again. It's just a decision that we never want to make for a donor. So my quick advice is get your head back in the game and have a fundraising plan. I think what we know is we know you're going to get from A to Z, but do you know how you're going to get to A to Z? It's always much easier to know where you're headed with a little bit of a roadmap. So are you going to write a letter? Are you going to update your Fundraising Success Center? Are you going to post something on Facebook? Are you going to sit down and ask 10 people in person? There are lots of different things that you can do, but I think making sure that you have a fundraising plan is a very easy and simple way to make sure that you see success with that. But most importantly, jump in and get started. Whether you have already started this year or whether you've kind of been waiting for something like this to really help you get started, the most important thing is just to kind of leap and take that step. I reached out to some of my colleagues and I asked them for some suggestions that they had, kind of keeping in mind that we're talking with an audience of people who have already fundraised before. And so here's some more beyond the basics fundraising ideas that you can consider. Ask for donations in lieu of birthday gifts. And I think for birthday, you can kind of substitute any holiday in there as well. Utilize Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Google+, to share your fundraising opportunities. I think what we've seen for sure is that social media has really changed the landscape of what our opportunities and our options are with fundraising. And I know from personal experience, Facebook provides you with the opportunity to really reach out to people who you likely never would have gotten support from. Sell space on a shirt for donors' names. Invite friends and family to a fundraising party and share your past event experience. And remind your donor about matching gifts. So these are just a handful of ideas. But I think, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, there really are endless opportunities that you do have for fundraising. I just want to pause for a second and just remind you that if you do have questions, please make sure that you go ahead and ask those via the chat panel, and we will answer those towards the end of today's webinar. For those of you who have been there, done that, I would say not so fast. Here's what I would want to say to that. Try something new. They said, you're only limited by your own imagination. So when I think about all of the different ways in which I have to fundraise, I really can do anything. I've heard a lot of things over the years, whether it's someone who has decided to wear a T-shirt and ask for donations literally on the T-shirt. I have heard of people who have gone to toll booths and on like Memorial Day weekend or other times when there are a lot of different, a lot of travelers out and about. And so again, I think that's one of our greatest opportunities is just to kind of figure out what we want to do and go for it. And sometimes going back to the basics works as well. So, I think we sometimes can make things more difficult for ourselves than they need to be. And so it's always a good reminder to take a step back and to just remember that sometimes going right back to the basics is what will work best for us. As event fundraisers, who have done this before, I think it's important to learn from your mistakes. In the past, I've definitely kind of taken stock of what I've done before and what I can keep doing, and using that as a guideline for myself. So in one of the times that I fundraised, I didn't send out a follow-up letter, and I realized that I had people who had reached back out to me and said that they never heard from me, and I was like, oh, but you have. And I realized that if I had just sent out a follow-up letter, I might have gotten more donations. And so I was able to learn from that and really kind of turn that around. So I think that's an opportunity as well that we have. And then build upon what you've done in the past, kind of as I said, of, learn from your mistakes, what has worked for you. And I think as we're all looking at taking things to the next level, it's taking a look at what we've done in the past and what can we do that will help us generate more fundraising dollars or engage more people within our community or family or friend circle. I also think what's great about what we've done, and again, kind of in that spirit of the audience of we've already done this before, is use use what you did last year or previous times fundraising as your starting point. So if you raised $800 last year, I would encourage you to set your goal to $1,000. Again, setting your fundraising goal higher than where you finished last year, it helps you stretch for something. And I also think it's really important to talk about your experience on event last year or if you did the event a few years ago. But I think there's a magic that happens when we get on events, and sometimes it's hard to explain to people, but other times it's really easy to tell people how you've been inspired by a survivor who you were walking with and you were able to talk with them and learn about what their experience has been like as a lung cancer survivor and how important the work is that we do. That's what we get to experience on events, and I think being able to talk about that, it really helps you, and it allows you to inspire and remind people why you continue to be invested. Another opportunity is to use meaningful dates as the anchor of your fundraising efforts. So this helps keep you and your potential donors connected to your reason for participating. My father passed away 9 years ago on August 26th, and I can use that as a date to start my fundraising. And what I love about that is it means that my fundraising doesn't just have to happen a month before an event. It doesn't have to happen the week of an event. But it can start with that date, and whatever that date is. Maybe it's a date that you were diagnosed. Maybe it was the date that you lost someone. Maybe it's some sort of a celebration. But I think using those meaningful dates as the anchor of your fundraising efforts, it gives you that opportunity to highlight why it is that you're doing it and to keep your fundraising going all year long if you want. Expand your donor pool. I think for those of us who have done this before, one of our first tasks should be to look at who donated last year, and you should absolutely be going back to those people again. One of my biggest pieces of advice coming out of this is not to make assumptions about those donors. Just because they donated last year doesn't mean they're not going to want to donate this year. So I would say, remove that kind of from your thinking as you're putting your fundraising plan together. But expand your donor pool. Who is it that you have the ability to add to that list? Are you maybe in a new church group? Have you joined a book club? Are you part of some circles on Facebook or some professional organizational groups that you can add to this list of people? So I absolutely think that this is one of the biggest opportunities that we have with what we're doing. And don't underestimate the power of the follow-up. There's so much more that can come out of your fundraising just by employing some simple follow-up tactics. One of the things that I did this past year, I participated in an event, and I referred to it as my big fundraising experiment. And I used follow-up as one of the things that I really wanted to check in on. So what you see here is proof that I'm a geek, because I, of course, put together an Excel chart to show this information. But what you see is when I started my fundraising was on the 7th of February. That's that first green arrow. And then I did pretty well in those first couple of days with getting some initial interest, and then I saw a nice little bump about 5 days later. And then a couple weeks later, I decided to send out another email. And so I did that on the 23rd, and I got about 8 donations, and that was great, and I was a little disappointed. And so I sent out another update on the 25th, and I got about 10 more. And then what you see is on 3/1 is when I was really pushing it. I felt I was a little outside, I was way outside of my comfort zone, to be honest. I'd already reached out to people 3 times before, but this was the day before the event. And so I sent out one final email, and I thanked everybody who had donated to me at that point. And then I asked people, to consider one more time to donate for what I was trying to do. And at that point, I kept moving my goal because all of the donations that I had received up to that point had put me over my goal. So I kept increasing my goal to give my donors something to reach toward. And look at how many donations I was able to get. I got the most amount of donations on March 1st, and it was the 4th time I reached out to my donors. So I just want to remind you that there's so much that you can do with the follow-up, and I hope that this chart helps illustrate that for you. Just to kind of recap some of the things that I talked about, try something new, learn from what has and hasn't worked, use previous years as your starting point. So build up from where you've finished previously. Ask for donations based on important dates to celebrate and honor your loved ones. And write out a list of donors, starting with those who gave last year, and add more to the list. And then, again, follow up frequently, and don't interpret no as a no. Don't interpret no answer as a no. What I said last week was a no isn't a no until you've heard a no. So again, I think there's just so much there in the follow-up, and in my experience, it's a big piece of what is oftentimes missing in our approach to fundraising. So the fundraising ask in 6 steps, we at Event 360 talk a lot about kind of what are these steps that we take to craft an ask. And so here's what I'm gonna walk us through, and then at the end of this, there are a few different asks that we want to share with you that you can hopefully take and start using. So share what you are doing about it again. Thank the donor for last year's donation. Identify the need you are continuing to address. Explain why it is still important. Ask your donor to take a specific action, and then stop talking and listen for objections. So share what you were doing about it again. Last year I participated in the Philadelphia Free to Breathe event and have signed up to walk again this November. Thank the donor for last year's donation. Because of your generosity, I was one of the top fundraisers. Thank you. Identify the need you are continuing to address. Lung cancer claims more lives than breast, colon, and prostate cancer combined. Explain why it is still important. As you may recall, I lost my father to lung cancer 2 years ago, which makes this a very personal experience for me. Ask your donor to take a specific action. I've increased my fundraising goal to $3,000 to fund vital research that will save lives. I hope I can count on you to help me be a top fundraiser again in 2013. Will you donate $100 before November 3rd? And then stop talking. Listen for objections applies if you're asking for someone in person or you're having a phone conversation with them. But for the most part, I know we've all kind of made this turn to really do a lot of our asking via emails or via the Fundraising Success Center. But it's important to just ask for what you want and then stop talking and let them kind of direct where this conversation goes next. So altogether, last year I participated in the Philadelphia Free to Breathe event and have signed up to walk again this November. Because of your generosity, I was one of the top fundraisers. Thank you. Lung cancer claims more lives than breast, colon, and prostate cancer combined. As you may recall, I lost my father to lung cancer 2 years ago, which makes this a very personal experience for me. I've increased my goal to $3,000 to fund vital research that will save lives. I hope I can count on you to help me be a top fundraiser again in 2013. Will you donate $100 before November 3rd? There are a couple of different asks in addition to that. So this is just a different angle from the perspective of you have a loved one who is diagnosed. I'm back at it again. It's that time of year where I get ready to lace up my shoes to participate in the Athens Free to Breathe event. Thank you for your donation last year. I couldn't have reached my goal without your support. As another year goes by, I'm reminded of just how much new treatment options have meant for my mom, who was diagnosed 2 years ago. This disease impacts us every day in every way imaginable. I'm dedicated to doing what I can to help other families like mine share more time together. I'm hoping to raise more money this year than ever before. Will you help by giving a gift of $100 today? Then here's an ask from the angle of a team participant. I'm participating in and fundraising for the Athens Free to Breathe event on November 16th for the 3rd year in a row. Thank you for your continued support of my participation with Team Molly. 1 in 14 people are diagnosed with lung cancer. Having been personally impacted by lung cancer, I want to raise money for essential research and patient programs. Will you make a $50 donation today? Also, let me know if you're interested in learning more about the event. We'd love to have you join our team. I love the last bit here because as team participants and really just as participants in this event in general, I think we all share in the responsibility of growing the event and seeing it become more successful. So I think if there's ways to add that to your fundraising requests as well, I think that that's really helpful. And then here's the final ask, just from the perspective of a lung cancer survivor. To celebrate another year of being a lung cancer survivor, I'm getting ready to participate in and fundraise for the Athens Free to Breathe event again. Thank you for last year's donation. As a lung cancer survivor, I know how critical research is to furthering treatment advancements. Research for this disease is severely underfunded, but I'm doing my part to ensure there are more lung cancer survivors. Will you help by giving a gift of $100 today? So those are a handful of different asks. And again, what we've done here is we've tried to build upon what's been done before. So whether you've participated before, whether you've fundraised before, we want to make sure that the donor recognizes that this is something that you have a continued commitment to do, and making sure that that's clear in how you're asking for support. The elements of a good ask, it has a question mark. So quite literally, you're asking a question. It's also specific. For most of the examples, I put $100 in there. I think we all have our different comfort levels, and we have different fundraising goals in which we're working towards. So what that amount looks like to you may be different than some of the examples that I've shared. But I want to share one more graph, which will further secure my place as a data geek, but also to really illustrate this point. This big fundraising experiment that I did for an event in March, I think it's pretty obvious to see what was the amount that I asked for in my fundraising request. I asked for $50, and it is by far the most amount, the most frequented amount of donation that I received. You'll see that there were about 20 people who gave me a $25 donation. And I can guarantee you that if I had asked for $25, I would have seen a lot more at the $25 level and maybe even more at the $10 and $20 level. But people chose what was most comfortable for them. And that's also something that I recommend, is that you ask for specific amounts. And again, because we're trying to go out of our comfort zone a little, I would add $25 onto whatever number it is that you think you're going to ask. Add $25, because you'll see you're going to get what you ask for, and people will donate what they're comfortable with. So I always recommend, kind of going a little higher than what you may initially think, and then just make sure you put, I'm asking for you to donate $100 today, or any amounts that you're comfortable with. So again, as you can see here, you're going to get what you ask for. The other thing about the elements of an ask is it's spoken. So it's something that you're putting out there. Again, as we've said a couple of times, you're not assuming what someone can and can't do. You're giving them that opportunity to support you. And it's authentic for you. So what may be authentic for me is going to be entirely different than what's authentic for you. We each have our own reasons for doing this. And it's so important to make sure that you're sharing that, because that's what people are really going to grab onto. And that's what that's going to really help them feel committed and wanting to help you. But make sure that however you make that request, that it makes sense for who you are and kind of, what you're most comfortable with. And I'll leave you with this thought in this section, is that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. As I said, the golden rule in fundraising is you ask for money when you get it, and you don't get money when you don't ask for it. So we're really encouraging you to just get out there and take all of those fundraising shots that you can. I'm going to pause and take a quick drink of water, but again, if there are questions that you have, please go ahead and use the chat panel. Okay, team participation. So if you're on this call because you already are on a team, or you're thinking of joining a team, I wanted to point out a few things, and also if you're a team captain. So what we know is that belonging to a team, it definitely makes participants feel more accountable for their individual fundraising. We also know that a team participant who has that support from a team captain, they're more likely to show up on event day. You have this great ability to lean on each other, to lead, to motivate, to inspire your team to fundraise and to show up on event every single day. To show up on event day. So you may be asking, as an event participant who's kind of, maybe participated in the past, or who is really looking to take things to the next level, how can I help? Well, as I would say, create your own team. There's a magic in being united with people who are like-minded and fired up about making a difference. And I think we all share in that responsibility, as I had mentioned earlier, to really take things and to help grow the event and to spread that awareness and to help people with their fundraising. And being on a team really helps make that possible. It also makes the reality of these fundraising events something that you can do because you can include more people in it. You can include your friends, you can include your family and your coworkers and your community in that experience. And your team is a great place to give and receive that fundraising and training advice. These fundraising events are easier with that team in your corner. You have the support of all of us, and which is great, but at the same time, you also have that ability to rely on the support that you get just naturally by being on a team. You should reach out to family, to friends, to coworkers, to acquaintances if you're looking to build a team or to grow your team. There are people all over in which I think we can look to see if they want to join the movement with us. And I would say if you're not quite there of wanting to create your own team, ask at least one more person to join you on an event this year. I think those of us who have done this before, I think we can show and tell people how easy fundraising can be. And we couldn't be as successful without team captains. The team captains really are, in many ways, the backbone of the event and really helping communicate information and doing a lot of that inspiring and motivating. So if you are a team captain and you're listening in, and you're with us today, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. We know that it's an added responsibility, and we appreciate everything that you're doing for us and with us. If you're wondering what you can do, I would say definitely take into account what I talked about at the beginning, is that oftentimes, event participants who have done this before, we kind of set up barriers for ourselves. We think that it's harder than it needs to be. We don't think that we can go back to the same people. So make sure that you're communicating openly with your team and talking to them about how possible it is. First and foremost, ask your teammates to fundraise. So this goes back to one of the very first things that I said, which is that the key to fundraising is just to ask. As a team captain, you have that ability to really help direct your teammates to fundraising simply by asking them to do that. It's always good to get your own fundraising underway. I think what we know is that it's so much better to be able to tell someone, I've been where you're going, or to be able to really kind of tell them what works and what doesn't work based on what you know from having done it yourself. And check in on your team's progress. Again, what I mentioned just a few slides ago is that participants are more likely to show up with that support of a team captain. So checking in on your team's progress really helps ensure that people they're doing the fundraising, they're doing the training, and they're going to show up on event day. And I think what's great is that being on a team, things just tend to naturally be more fun. You have more people, and sometimes you're doing these different challenges, or you have costumes or silly things that you're putting on your T-shirts and stuff like that. So see what are the different ways in which you can make it a fun experience for your team. A few pieces of advice for your team fundraising: set your goal higher than where you or your team finished last year, and aim to recruit more participants to be on your team. But thinking of both of those things, I think that we all kind of need to take up, to pause and be able to answer this question. What does taking your team participation to the next level look like for you? I think it's important for us to know what that answer is so that we can, again, have this plan that guides how we choose to participate. A few different ideas specific around team fundraising that tends to work with more people kind of working behind that power. But organize a team yard sale. This is a great way to, I think as we all know, get rid of things that have been laying around our houses for a while. But it's also a great way to spread that fundraising awareness in your community. And you also have the ability to kind of do some cross fundraising with opportunities like this. So maybe you are also selling lemonade or selling baked goods. And you're absolutely putting up signs so that people know that you're doing this for your participation in Free to Breathe. And so this is a really great opportunity for people to say that, that they may give you 50 cents, right, because that's what the sticker price is, but when they find out that this is actually going towards your fundraising efforts, they will likely increase that. And that's what I've found happens when I talk to other event participants when they go this route of doing a yard sale. Another thing is execute a social media challenge. So maybe every Tuesday, every single person on your team is putting a request on Facebook to add one more person to the team, or to get, maybe it's $10 Team Tuesday, where you're just asking people, even people who've already donated to you before, to help you with this challenge that you've put out there for your team. Again, how you choose to do this, the opportunities really are endless. Create a fundraising event and set the expectation that it will happen every year. I just a few weeks ago attended a fundraiser for a coworker of mine, and it was the 7th annual event. So I know that this is something that's going to happen every year, and so I know to plan for that. And host a silent auction. You can get items donated, and this is a great way, again, to kind of use the power of the team to really kind of divide and conquer what that looks like. As far as fundraising support goes, what I would want to say is that the support that we offer matches the commitment we're asking you to make. You're not alone in this. You have made an incredible commitment in signing up and in putting your faith and your support in our organization, and we're here to make sure that we're not only listening, but we're here to cheerlead. We're here to offer you one-on-one support or offer you a helping hand when you need it. But most importantly, we're here to make sure that you show up smiling and having a good time on events. That's what we're here to do. So you have the opportunity to connect with our knowledgeable and friendly staff. We can offer personalized fundraising support that will match what works best for you, because we all bring different levels of experience and comfort to the table. So I've left our phone number and our email address. Please absolutely take advantage of this. We are here to help you, and we want to help you. For additional fundraising support, we have some additional resources online at freetobreathe.org/fundraisingtips.html. There's business card templates, a social media messaging guide, and a team captain handbook. And also, if you're looking to build your team, which we hope everyone is, freetobreathe.org/buildateam.html. So those are a couple of additional resources available. Immediate next steps. Log into your Fundraising Success Center and customize your personal page if you haven't already. Increase your goal above where you finished last year or in previous years. And secure a donation within the next 24 hours. I challenge everyone on the call to go ahead and do that. Create your fundraising plan and contact us if you need more inspiration and motivation. As I said, we are definitely here to help you. What I want to leave you with is that your part matters. You're a hugely important part of our organization and the work that we do. And as I said, we could not do this without you. Our vision is to double lung cancer survival in the next 10 years, and every one of you play a very important role in making that happen. I put up here a picture of a mirror because I want you all to kind of pretend that you're looking in a mirror and know that you're going to be what helps make this happen. Regardless of how you choose to fundraise, the great thing is that we all can build the promise of life-saving treatments and a cure for everyone who's diagnosed with lung cancer. So thank you very much for your time. I know I just moved through a lot of information in a short period of time. I know there are questions, so Jackie, I'm going to go ahead and pause and pass it over to you to let me know what questions I can answer for the group today.
Thank you, Molly. We do have a handful of questions, and I think just like last week, we're going to probably toss them back your way. And let's start with this first question. So it says, I've already surpassed the goal that we set for fundraising. Is it odd to raise it now that my donors already helped me achieve it?
I love this question so much. The answer is absolutely not. I always think that I think changing your goal is great because I'm hopeful that you have more people who you can reach out to, and now that you've reached your goal, you feel kind of a little bit more fire to keep going. That's how I feel when I fundraise. So no, absolutely not. Keep increasing your goal. This event that I did, I set my goal at 5,000. I increased it to 5,500. I met that, and I still wanted people to donate. And so I increased that to 6,000, and I finally stopped at 6,500, which I met. But no, I absolutely think as your fundraising grows, your goals should as well, especially as you have more people who you have to reach out to, because you want people to feel like they're contributing to your goal. And so you want to give them something. You want to give them something to reach for. I have also found that people will change the amount that they donate if they think that if they see that you've already hit your goal, because there's a psychological element there of they hit their goal, they don't need as much. So yes, 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 yes. Change your goal.
Great, thanks, Molly. Just a couple more. Let's see. This is interesting, and I'll be really curious, kind of what you can share with us on this. It says, I don't think that I have a very strong story, so I don't typically personalize my fundraising page. Is that okay? And do you think I can still be successful?
So I would love the opportunity to speak with this participant one-on-one, because I think we all have compelling reasons for doing this. And I think what I've found is that sometimes people feel like their reason isn't compelling because they haven't been closely impacted by the cause. But I think it's really compelling that oftentimes there isn't a connection, but we just feel the sense of responsibility to make the world a better place. And that is a compelling reason for doing what we do. And again, I'm kind of making assumptions here, so that may not be, that may not be what you're specifically talking about. But I think that there are ways to make what you're doing compelling. And I think by the very nature of being committed to fundraising and to participating in an event that will help make people's lives better and that will buy more time for people who are impacted by lung cancer, that is compelling, and that is a personal statement in which you can hang on when you're doing your fundraising. So I would say you're a perfect candidate to give us a call or to leave your contact information for us to call you and really help you personalize that a bit so you may feel more comfortable doing that, because I think what's important is that you feel comfortable with what you're doing so that you can fundraise even more and be even more successful with that.
Great.
Did I answer all parts of that question?
I think so. It kind of, yeah, they were asking if that's okay. Do you think I'll still be successful? So, yeah, I think that we definitely addressed it. And to your point, everyone should feel free to call our office, and we're happy to have some personalized, discussion around your fundraising goals and opportunities. So, how about this one, Molly? It says, what are some creative ways to engage my team in last-minute fundraising to boost our totals?
Okay. Last-minute fundraising. Well, I mean, one, like I just shared, I within probably the past couple of weeks, I've read this article about someone who said that they go to toll booths and fundraise there, which, everyone needs to be safe and follow the law and all that kind of stuff. So let's make sure that that's just a given with what I'm saying. But I mean, I think that like I said, can you find themes within social media? So like I said, $10 Tuesday, 50 Friday, there are different ways in which you can kind of build upon those themes, whether it's social media or not. And then I think it's also, can you put that back on your team so that you as the team captain are not the only person who's responsible for coming up with those ideas? I think this theme of just asking and, it extends to so many other areas of the work that we do with fundraising. And so can you ask other people to be in charge of what a fundraiser would be, And another thing that we know is that there are different restaurants that you can partner with who would be willing to donate a portion of the proceeds that they raise, that they earn in a night towards your fundraising efforts. So maybe each person on your team can be responsible for securing a restaurant who would be willing to do that. Like I said, the silent auction piece is also a great thing because I think you can set that up to be last minute, but you could also be more thoughtful with that and have that be something that you choose to do now. But I would say it's a great opportunity to get your team involved in what that would look like and to get them to kind of brainstorm on what that would do. But those are just a few ideas off the top of my head.
Thank you. And then we really have one additional question, unless other folks have some things that they'd like to type in and ask before we wrap up. But the last question, and actually, Molly, our team can definitely take this one, and it says that I still have people showing interest, so can I still fundraise after the events are over? Mine was last weekend. So the answer to that question is absolutely. You can still fundraise. You know, obviously we talked a lot about where the dollars go and the impact that they can have. So very specifically, each event, each Free to Breathe event location, the fundraising stays open for 45 days post-event. And we actually have had people who do year-round fundraising. So whether it's even many days after that, and you want to start to, we'll call it kind of like bank your fundraising totals, so that you can put them towards your team for next year. So that's something, if you just communicate with our office here on the events team, we are happy to work with you to kind of, you know, flag the money so that as soon as your team is created the following year, we'll go ahead and put your totals if you're doing some sort of fun, if you're doing a chili cook-off, or as Molly talked about, you know, silent auction events, or you're doing a wine and cheese tasting, or, you know, any other creative activity that you want to do year-round fundraising. So right after the event, if you want it to show up on your team's page in totals, it's all within 45 days after, and those are the totals that also make you eligible for any of the fundraising rewards that we have and incentives that we have as a program. But then outside of that, we can definitely and happily work with you towards your goals for the following year. So,
and Jackie, one thought that just kind of came to mind as well in terms of kind of these last minute, you know, team fundraising things. I think this is also where kind of team challenges can come into play. You know, can you encourage people to try to get who can be the first one to raise $500, you know, or who can get 10 donations in the week? And so those aren't necessarily specific fundraising ideas, but they're ways to generate fundraising activity within your team as well.
Great, thank you, Molly. Yeah, that's awesome. And then I did just want to make one clarification for anybody who's on the line whose event is taking place in November. We talk about 45 days, but essentially when we get to year end and you want to think about ways to sort of follow up, as Molly was talking about, we actually keep fundraising open for all of our November events through December 31st. Year-end giving is a significant opportunity for a lot of donors, and they will actually make donations on December 31st, and a lot of times it's of benefit to them, you know, from a tax standpoint and things like that. So just know that there's an opportunity there if you've never thought about it, really reaching out to potential donors right before New Year's. And I actually think a lot of them will be happy for the reminder that it was an opportunity for them. So yeah, well, outside of that, I don't see any additional questions. So thank you so much, Molly, for a fantastic presentation and Q&A session. Always full of insight and ideas and steps to incredible fundraising success for everyone. And thank you to each of you who were on the line with us today and spent your time with us this afternoon. And thank you for every ounce of heart and soul and amazing energy that you'll be putting into fundraising for Free to Breathe and the lung cancer movement, and for helping each and every family that's been impacted by this disease. Truly, we can't wait to see your remarkable fundraising results, and our team is very, very happy to help. So please feel free to reach out to us, contact us with any questions or curiosities you have. And thank you again for helping to turn the vision of doubling lung cancer survival into a reality. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and look forward to hearing from each of you. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.